So I'm talking Mars retrograde in the tropical zodiacal sign of Aries, the sign that Mars rules. So it's a very fascinating and rare transit. Since 1900, it's only happened one other time, and that was the year 1941 that Mars both stationed retrograde and stationed direct in the sign of Aries. We get that this year in 2020. Mars will be closely overcome during this station by Saturn and Capricorn. Okay, so Saturn and Capricorn is in the 26th degree of Capricorn. Mars is stationing retrograde in the 29th degree of Aries. So we're within about 3 degrees. What that means is that it underscores the themes of blockage and restriction that are natural to retrograde stations and periods of retrograde. Authors talk about retrogradation being blockage. There might be a sense that the action you're wanting to undertake can't happen, right? And that's the theme of 2020 in a lot of ways, because we've been in this kind of uncertain period where life as we have known it up until this year has been shut down. And so I think that this retrograde station of Mars is almost emblematic of the whole of 2020. And of course, it is one of the most striking chart signatures of the astrology of 2020. Then you have Saturn making a square, right? A dynamic square overcoming Mars. So Saturn being an earlier zodiacal order, we sometimes say Saturn wins, so that the significations of Saturn, of restriction, isolation, being cut off, those significations will win out over the significations of Mars, which are action. And so it's this kind of double blockage with this Saturn aspect. Mercury, during the day of the station on 10 September, right after midnight in Central Europe, Mercury will be very strong in Libra. So Mercury is a triplicity ruler of Libra by night, Libra being the air sign. Mercury will be in the 7th degree of Libra, where it's also in its own Egyptian term. And so there's this doubling up of mercurial power. And I think that will give us a chance to express frustration, beautifully express our frustration, eloquently express our frustration. Sometimes that's the only way to deal with being blocked, is to get out a journal, do some free writing, call a friend and say, hey, can I grab your ear for a second? And just let someone else know, articulate what you're going through, as a way to manage this very restrictive energy, with Mars wanting to act. So it's not just restriction by itself, it's restricting specifically the action that we want to be doing. And that's what makes this moment so sticky, right? And Mars is anger as well. And so there's this frustration component that I think the journaling and the mercurial work can sort of satisfy. It could also be visioning, right? We won't be restricted forever. Life works in cycles. And so you might want to take this time with Mercury being so strong to just envision the future, envision scenarios or situations that you want to be in. Mars will be stationing retrograde right on top of a fixed star. I mean, there is no separation, 0 degrees, 0 degree minutes from the fixed star Vertex. And Vertex is a star in the Andromeda constellation. Andromeda was the beautiful daughter of the king Cepheus and queen Cassiopeia. She was desired because she was so beautiful. There was a boasting about her beauty, and then Poseidon sent a monster to destroy the king's kingdom. They wanted to sacrifice her because of her beauty, and then Perseus saved her, fell in love, and they had a family. The idea of blockage, right? And with Mars, the action of Mars being blocked, the thing about Cassiopeia is that she was put on a rock and chained to a rock to wait for that sacrifice to take place. Again, that's like a retrograde Mars. You can't act, you're chained down, your movement is restricted. So we see that really here with the story of Andromeda and the Vertex fixed star. Ptolemy says that Andromeda is like Venus. I think about, so it's again a damsel in distress situation. There's a blockage, we don't know what's going on, we're feeling like we can't interact with people. And that's kind of how I see the Andromeda myth applying to our current moment. Manilius talks about Andromeda being this executioner, that the Andromeda constellation can really be about an executioner for those born near it or under it. And particularly with Mars often being associated with iron weapons. I think how I would apply it is that what can we kill? Yeah, right. There's a lot of talk of the new normal. The old normal, there's things we might have to let go of permanently, right? And dealing with the frustration of that. There's parts of life that won't be entering into the years following 2020. And the distress over that, I think, is something that, we have to process. And remember, Perseus eventually marries Andromeda and they have a happy life together. So that will come. But in this moment of dire kind of gravity, we might and we do have to sacrifice things from the old world. The third decan of Aries, Hephaestus of Thebes in his book, he talks about that being a Venus, right? And here's the Thoth Tarot. This is the Venus in Aries decan, the third decan of Aries. Crowley titles this completion for his card. But if you look into Hephaestus, he says that there's distress in marriage, especially in early age. Then later, actually, you have a relationship and can beget children. Then the end of life is cheerful. And so I think, again, even with Hephaestus' explication of this decan, which is ruled by Venus, we see this Andromeda theme emerging again, that this is a time for blockage and distress with the retrogradation of Mars. But later, when we're through this, so into 2020, we can have relief and have, good tidings return. All right, the Sabian symbol here is a celestial choir singing. I'm not sure how much, I wanted to include this just because I really like the image here. I do think for me that there is, and this is Mark Edmund Jones, he writes, there are overtones here which transform every lesser aspect of experience, calling on the individual to give a spiritual dramatization to his daily living for himself and his fellows within every range of his powers and skills. A little long-winded there, a little verbose, but to me it's just that there is this kind of higher order to life, this spiritual component, and it's always worth considering that when we're going through these difficulties with the Mars retrograde. There is this kind of celestial brilliance and this kind of elegance to reality that I think maybe lessons we can learn now. Even just suffering is a great lesson, because through endurance we have a capacity to feel for other people. So there's an empathetic growth that happens. A capacity for empathy expands when we're trapped and when we're going through trial and tribulation. Sweet singing is also Venus, and so I think that Venusian sense of what's happening right now with the Mars retrograde is very useful. And this is what I wanted to come to next, is that Venus is in Leo here outside of hard aspects to Mars and Saturn. So Venus is kind of the bright spot in the sky during the station retrograde of Mars. And it's the only planet in a fixed sign. Remember, fixed signs are stability. So Venus, the planet of relationship and love and singing actually, is in a stable, fixed part of the sky. And I think that what it tells me is that we got to rely on the love connections that we have, these kind of stable, tentpole relationships in our life. Those are the folks that we can sort of lean into right now. Now, we might have less strong or frivolous connections that are more tenuous or are more in distress, or we might not have any of those connections if there's been distancing in your life or separation, but relying on the loved ones that have been there for you. That is how we can get through this period. It's a simple message, but I think a very profound message. Venus and Leo also will perfect a trine to Mars during the retrograde. So here are the dates of how Venus and Mars will interact over this period. On the 29th of September, at the end of the month, there's a perfection of a trine. So Mars will be retrograde in Aries, overcoming Venus in Leo, and they will perfect that trine. That's going to be a sweet spot of astrology, I think. Venus will be casting rays back at Mars, kind of sweetening the retrograde. And then there'll be an opposition when Venus is strong in Libra on the 20th. Venus will oppose Mars in Aries. And I think even though it's an opposition, that's naturally how Venus and Mars are set up in the zodiac, that every sign Venus rules opposes every sign that Mars rules. So this opposition, I think there's a sense of a naturalism or a coherence when these two planets oppose each other, and they'll both be very strong in the sky. So this might be a time to work with a partner or talk about disagreement or solve problems with a partner. That's 9th of November, and we're getting far out here. And then the direct station happens on the 14th of November, in the 16th degree of Aries. So this is about 13-degree range for the zone of the zodiac that Mars will traverse back over during its retrograde period. Mars does not retrograde very often, only in Aries. That happened last in 1941 when World War II was happening, and then when America entered World War II. 1862 was the last time it happened before that, during the U.S. Civil War. So there was also a war for America during that time. And then in 1783 was the last time before that Mars was only in Aries, and that was when the Revolutionary War ended. The Treaty of Paris was signed in 1783. So there's this theme of war in America. Every time these transits have appeared, the thing was, in the Treaty of Paris here, 1783, Saturn was also in Capricorn, overcoming Mars and putting that pressure on Mars to restrict that kind of martial tendency to war. In both 1862 and 1941, that wasn't the case. So Mars was able to reign free a little bit more. Our year 2020, we have that Saturn restriction. So I don't think it'll be as warlike this time. All right, if you want to check more out, I had a video on my channel, Mars and Aries 2020-2021. This goes into a lot more detail about 1783 and some other features to the Mars and Aries transit. This year. Like I was speaking about before, Venus in Leo is going to be protected from hard aspects from Mars and Saturn and the lunar nodes. Venus will be traversing its own term on the 14th of September, and the moon will be right there activating Venus. And so I think connection can meet the needs of the moment, connection with people and with the love in your life. This is a kind of a way through this initial phase of the Mars retrograde. And remember, fire is warmth. So both Mars and Venus will be in these fire signs. And I'm thinking here of body heat. And so, yeah, if you have lovers or just even close people that you feel safe connecting with physically, do that. You know, get your body heat from another person. There's something so profound about that touch. So where I am in Budapest, I'm not able to get the Venus hour. But look for where you are. You might be able to get the moon here, applying to Venus right next to the ascendant or even the midheaven during a Venus hour. And if you can do that, I would say it might be time to strike up at least something a little bit more serious in terms of a ritual, because you'll have kind of the golden confluence of factors to really have strong Venusian energy available to you. But even so, you know, Venus is only in its own term. You know, but still, I'm looking for anything right now. There was some Twitter conversation today. We're just looking for pockets of energy to get through the rest of this year. This is one of them. You know, reach out to the powers that be that as you conceive them, and, you know, open to your Venus, you know, open here to the energy of Venus. It can be a really nice soothing energy. And yeah, this is the article, Becky Wright in happiful.com. What is skin hunger? And she goes here, this came out on the 21st of August this year. She's talking about touch in this article, and touch is so crucial to have healthy relationships. And it's how we establish intimacy. And it's not just romantic connections. I really wanted to underscore that. Physical contact has a direct link to our sense of mental well-being. And so that's from her article. It's just the power to stimulate things, and it generates hormones in the brain. It's a natural antidepressant. It's a pleasure chemical, dopamine, that gets triggered when we have touch. So I would say find the people that you feel safe around right now, hug them, touch them, even a massage, or just a, you know, hey, can I hug you? I need a hug, man. And then just embrace and feel that. You know, it's a really important part of the human being. Cartomancy pull. This is the resistance card. This is Saturn in Leo, the 5 of clubs. And this is the first decan of Leo, where you have Saturn reigning. This is the sign of Saturn's exile or detriment. You know, so Saturn rules the opposite zodiac sign, Aquarius. And here it's just, you know, in Leo energy, we really have an established sense of self that we want to extend into the world. We want to kind of project who we are to those around us. And I feel like the Leo and the fire energy is very much an active energy. It's a fire sign, it's of the day sect, and again, it's about this kind of engagement with the community with a strong, fixed sense of identity. And Saturn is isolation. You know, Saturn is cool and cold and isolatory. It's really about being alone, maybe going inward. Saturn being that planet connected to the gods because it's highest in the Chaldean order, the top of the order. And so there's just kind of a tension here between retreating, monasticism, asceticism, spiritual connection, and wanting to sort of project and engage with that Leo energy. And so we have to kind of find tension to this. I really see this card as being about balance, like when there is resistance to what we have to say or what we have to give to the community, sometimes it's best to just retreat and go inward and take some time off to kind of gather your intention and get clear about who you are and what you are. And with fixed signs, it can be so hard to kind of second guess that identity. But sometimes with Saturn, there is a teacher a teaching, moment that can come in with Saturn. Saturn wants to teach. It's going to be okay. Eventually, you will find an identity that works for you, your true identity, right? We're all on that spiritual path. As always, you can schedule a reading with me. My website is sjanderson144.com. You just go there, and I have a link right at the top where you can click to schedule a reading, and that'll take you to the instruction page. I look forward to reading for you. I really enjoy reading. And you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram or both at sjanderson144.